Hello friend, welcome back. We are heading out into the garden. We have a big harvest to do today. It has been in the mid 80s for the past couple days, and it's supposed to dip down and start raining for the foreseeable future, which means there's a crop that I want to get out of this garden while I can. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some baskets, and we're going to go get that crop. So there's two things that we're going to be harvesting. One of them are the black beans, which I actually harvested last week. So I'll bring you back to last week and I will show you that harvest. And then what we're going to be harvesting right now are the onions. So let me show you the black bean harvest, and then we'll be back and we will be harvesting 2024's onions. Here are the black beans, and they are ready to harvest. The reason I know they're ready to harvest is the plants are starting to yellow, but more than that, the pods are starting to yellow and they're super dry. And I've actually found a couple that have already split open. Let me show you that. On this side of the bed, well, there was one over here yesterday, but now I can't find it. What happens if you let them go too long, they will dry out so much that the outside will actually split open to release the seeds, because that's what the plant wants to do in nature. It wants to replant itself to grow next year. So you want to try to get it before they start to split open. So that's what we're going to do today. There's lots of them in here. So I've got two baskets, some scissors, some gloves, and let's get to harvesting this year's black bean harvest. So I'm just cutting these plants back at the base, leaving the roots intact so that they can break down over the winter and add organic material. So I see weeds in here, so I'm going to pull these as I go, because I don't want these in here for next year. Black beans are one of my favorite things to grow. I have no idea why I have just gravitated toward growing dried black beans so much, but I love them and it brings me so much joy. The first time I ever grew black beans, I actually bought, I think, 2 black bean seed packs from M.I. Gardner, and that was back when his seed packs were $1 each. So I spent $2 on 2 seed packs. That was February 2020, and I planted those seed packs out. They grew, they produced black beans. It blew my mind. I learned to pressure can that year, so I pressure canned a ton of them. It was a year's worth of black beans for Josh and I was able to save some seed back. I planted those seeds out the following year. They grew, produced black beans, and that was the first time I had ever pressure canned anything. Beans were the first thing I pressure canned, and it was the first time I had ever saved seed and planted it out, and it grew the next year and produced a crop. It produced enough for me to can them up for the following year, and I saved seed back so that I could plant them out. I planted them out. They grew, but the deer kept eating them. So my third year growing black beans, I got 0 harvest, but thankfully I didn't plant out all my seed. And so last year I was able to plant some of the seed that I had saved. I grew them out, I harvested them, we jarred them up together, and then we planted the seed that I had saved back that I didn't jar up, and that is what this is. I think that these plants, and this crop brings me so much joy because it was successful my first year, and it just gave me so much confidence in my gardening journey. And just being able to save seed and replant has just been so fun and rewarding. So even though I could go to the store and buy black bean seeds for relatively inexpensive, I really enjoy putting the work in to grow my own black beans. So this is just the start of the harvest for this year's. So things like this I'm weeding because I don't want them to be a problem next year. Here is what the after of this bed looks like. The tomatoes have a lot more area to breathe. And this is our mountain of black bean plants where I need to take the beans off the pods. Or take the beans off the plants is what I need to do next. And that's going to be quite the project. So all I'm going to do is take these plants, remove the bean pods, put them in my basket, put these plants back on this bed, and I'm going to let these beans compost all winter, the plants at least, on this bed. I find it easier to just cut the plants out of the ground to do this part because I don't know, that's just what I've always done, so that's what I keep doing. So I have found it does help to hold the plant upside down so the beans kind of dangle downwards, and then you can just kind of pull and they come off easier that way. Here's a good example of them starting to split open. This is why I want to harvest them now, because I don't want the beans splitting open and me losing them into the garden bed. I think I answered my own question of why growing black beans has brought me so much joy over the years when I was kind of explaining my black bean growing journey with you. And I think it's because it's one of the few crops that I feel confident in not only planting it and growing it out, but taking it and bringing it in and putting it up for my family and enjoying eating it all year long. And then not only that, but saving the seed and then planting it out the following year and having this crop that kind of perpetuates itself, which has been so rewarding. Now, one year it was a total disaster and I didn't get a crop out of it, but 3 out of the 4 years I've grown it, it's been successful. And thankfully each year when I plant out my seed, I always save back quite a bit so that in the event that I have a crop failure, I still have some seed that basically is seed that I've been saving since 2020, which I am just so happy about that fact. It's so fun. And when it comes to gardening, each different aspect of gardening is a huge skill to learn in and of itself. You know, there's the skill of, planting the seed and growing the plant out, and even some seeds, we have to start indoors, and that's a whole skill in of itself. And then learning to harvest it and put it up in a way that your family enjoys eating it, and then learning to save seed. Like, each one of those steps is a huge skill in of itself. And black beans are the only crop so far that I feel confident in each one of those steps. So it's just so fun to me. I have been able to grow an entire year's worth of black beans for my family for the past 3 years in one 16-foot by 4-foot bed, which is kind of a small space. So here's a good example of one of the pods that opened, and I did lose these couple black beans. No big deal, but this is what I'm trying to avoid by harvesting them now at this stage. I am getting a little burnt out of pulling all these. I have done about half of them and I have a full basket. I still have all of those, but I know that I've got some other harvesting I can do. So I think we're going to take a break from that and do some harvesting. So I am finding 4 zucchini plants to be about the perfect number for me. 4 plants gives me enough to enjoy as much fresh as we want. I can put a bunch up and I can still share some. So that's been really nice. So now I've worked my way back to these black beans, so I'm going to keep picking these black beans. I ran out of basket space, so I just put all my black beans on the ground here, and I'm going to have to clean up the ground anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and actually put my black beans into the wheelbarrow. This is a lot of black beans. Black beans are also a fun crop because you don't have to preserve them if you don't want to, because they basically preserve themselves. Once you pull them off the plant at this dry state, then you can just put them away in a dry, dark spot, and you can harvest them out of the pods and cook them from dried if you want to. Now, I do choose to remove the seeds from the pods, and I do choose to pressure can the majority of them just because it's more convenient for me. But there is something nice about a crop that it's not perishable like, say, a tomato or a zucchini, that if you don't deal with it within a week or so after harvesting, it's going to go bad on you. And that's another kind of fun thing about growing dried beans. Now, this is one of the first years where I am attempting to grow some other varieties, and I haven't harvested those yet. But when I do, I'm excited to see if I come back to these black bean, bush bean varieties. Now, this is called a black turtle bush bean variety. This is the same bean that I've been growing again for 4 years, and it's done really, really well for me. But I have a pole bean variety of black beans and then a kind of pinto bean variety growing that's a pole bean as well. And maybe I will grow more of those next year and I'll grow less of this. I'm not sure. But I am super happy so far with the harvest. I can't wait to take all the seeds out of the pods. All right. Fantastic harvest today. Now, I did pick up this gravel. I do need to pick it up a little bit more. One of the downsides of the gravel walkways is I don't like to let a bunch of organic matter break down on it. So I do pick it up, and I will clean this even more, but it is easier to maintain, I think, long term, even though after harvest like this, I do kind of have to do some cleanup. But what I'm going to do now is take this inside. We're going to my mom's house for dinner tonight, and I think I'm going to make, if you watched when I made the beef Wellington, I also made a caprese salad with burrata with the homegrown tomatoes. I'm going to make that again tonight and bring over there. Here is the after of the after of the after. I'm going to let that compost in place and just give a little bit more organic matter to this bed. I need to go inside and get ready and shower for the day, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to lay these out to let them cure so we can enjoy them later this year. So this is the 2024's harvest. I'm going to let these lay here for about a week or two with a fan on them. We have more black beans and drying beans, but this is what we have so far. So here's one of 2 beds that we need to harvest these onions, and they are looking, at least this variety right here, these are the Patterson. They are most definitely ready. So you know an onion is ready to harvest when the green falls over and you pull on it or you feel it and it is kind of hollow on the inside. So these are all ready. You can see there's carrots in here too. I do not want the carrots showing. I'm not ready to harvest those yet. That's not for today. So I'm going to kind of put the soil back over them. You don't want to expose your carrots and then let them be exposed to the sunshine because they turn green. So I'm just grabbing gloves that I have around the garden. I have a bad habit of leaving them places, but that's okay because I can find them when I need them. So I'm just going to go ahead and start harvesting these. These are some of the best onions I've ever grown. This is a, let's see if I can, huge softball size onion. There's a weed. Let's get that out of there. Now they're not all softball size, but a good majority of them are. So I'm just going to harvest these and start putting them into my basket. Look at the size of this onion. This is just huge. I just can't believe how big these onions are. So if you've been here for any length of time or over the last few years, my onions have always been so small. The biggest onions I usually grow are this big. And look at the size difference. Like this would be a large size onion for me. Normally they're like ping pong ball size. So this is fantastic. So this weed has gone to seed. This weed has not. I'm gonna go chuck these over the deer fence because I don't want them going to seed in my bed here. Not even a little bit do I want that. Just look at the size of this onion. I got 2 baskets full of Patterson onions. These are a storage variety of onions. And I still have the rest of that bed to harvest of red onions. Those are red wing onions. And I still have all the carrots to harvest. But what I just did in the meantime before I harvest those red onions is I just weeded the bed. I think what I'm going to do is wait another week or two. I know we will get a stretch with no rain again and I can harvest those red wing ones because they haven't all fallen over yet. And you do want them falling over before you harvest them. These weeds, I'm just going to toss over the side. I'm going to let the carrots just kind of hang out here for a little bit without the onions. This is my second year doing this where I plant my carrots interspersed in with the onions and it has worked perfectly. The only difference I did this year as opposed to what I did last year is last year I planted the carrots in between each row of onions, and this year I went every other row of onions. I planted the carrots, and the variety of carrots I have in there are Bolero carrots. They were pelleted that I got from Johnny Seed, and I think I can actually harvest this pumpkin. I tripped over it by mistake. You know a pumpkin is ready to harvest when the first tendril right here dries up, which clearly we have that. And when you take your fingernail and you push on it, well, that's kind of, I don't think it's getting any more nutrients. I think this plant died. I think I'm just gonna leave it until I harvest some more pumpkins. Well, I don't know, let's see. Can I get this off? I didn't bring scissors out here. Maybe we will harvest it. I know I have a pair of scissors out here. So it was funny when Josh and I were processing the onions that had bolted. He made some comment about something, and I was like, no, we have a lot more onions out there. He thought that the onions that we processed and turned into caramelized onions and that I freeze dried, and what else did we do with them? Oh, that we pickled. He thought those were all the onions I grew this year, which was kind of cute. But no. Those were just the ones that needed to be dealt with. Got a pair of scissors. I really don't like to break pumpkins off their vine because I have broken this stem before. These are scissors that I have left out in the garden all year, so they might not work. I need to create a little spot. There we go. I just need to do it with my right hand. A little spot where I can store tools out in the garden. I kind of like when they have the little tendril on them. Cut that one off. Okay. This is our first pumpkin of the year. I don't know what kind of variety it is, but we got ourselves a pumpkin. So this was not on my plan to harvest the wheat today, but because it's going to be raining, I think I should. So I just grabbed my big 30-quart bowl. I don't know what I'm doing here. We're in this together, and I'm going to start harvesting this wheat. Okay, so what should I do here? We had a big storm and all my wheat fell over, and it did not stand back up. So it's going to be a little tricky because I can't just come in here and mow the whole thing down, which is what I wanted to do. So that bowl is full. I'm gonna need to go empty it before I come back out here and get more. But I think before I do that, I'm gonna go harvest the last of the onions that need to be harvested today. So these right here are the Walla Walla onions that need to be harvested, and there's quite a few in here, and they are a decent size. So I'm just gonna start at one end and work my way that way. This variety is Walla Walla, which is a sweet onion, which I think is technically the same variety as a Vidalia onion. Just the name depends on, like if you buy it at the grocery store, where they're grown. Walla Wallas are grown in Walla Walla, Washington. These are definitely smaller than the Patterson. You know, maybe these are the Patterson onions. I'm gonna have to go back and look at my planting these and see what I did, because now I can't remember. I say that because in the past my Walla Wallas have always grown bigger than my storage onion varieties, and the onions that I just harvested are much bigger, and these have a thicker skin on them, which makes me think that maybe these are the Patterson ones and those were the Walla Wallas. I started these onions with you all back, I think it was in February. Smells like Thanksgiving over here because this is a sage plant that I'm brushing up against. I got a couple really large ones, mostly over here. I wonder why. Okay, this is the last of the onions from this bed that I can see. So I'm gonna go bring these where I'm gonna cure them, and man, this is heavy. I got all the onions to the back porch, but I need to unlock the door so I can let them in. Another thing I need to do before the rain is harvest these dragon tongue beans that are dry. I just collected 4 eggs from the chickens. I also have a lot of mostly ripe tomatoes, Roma tomatoes that need to be harvested. I'm letting those ripen inside. Not in that bed, but for some reason, in this bed, I'm having a big slug problem with my tomatoes, which I have never had before. Not just the ones that are on the ground like this, but some of them that are up off the ground. Slugs are going up and eating the tomatoes. So all of these almost ripe ones, I'm gonna go ahead and harvest today. And then all of these ripe cherry tomatoes on this vine, that vine over there, and this one over here. There's probably 100 very beautifully ripe tomatoes on this. I cannot tell you how much we've been eating cherry tomatoes. Almost every single meal we have marinated cherry tomatoes, basically kind of like a light pickled cherry tomato. I make a vinaigrette and I put the cherry tomatoes cut in half in them, and I top everything with it. But we're at the point where we're getting way more than I can eat and Josh can eat. And so these ones I'm gonna turn into sun-dried tomatoes, I think tomorrow. But I need to harvest them before the rain tomorrow, or they are going to split, which I do not want. So I'm gonna get those. And then I already showed you these plants over here. I've got one more plant over there in that corner as well that I need to get. But I gotta run inside and lay my onions out flat so they can start to dry and cure. And then I will come back out later because I have to be somewhere in about 45 minutes. So that gives me just enough time to lay the onions out flat and then go to my appointment and then come back and harvest all these goodies tonight before the rain sets in. The onions are laying out by variety out on these cardboard boxes down in my basement. I have my black beans out here. These are still curing and drying, and at some point we will come down and we will manage it. I do have a fan on here. Here's our wheat harvest. I want to thank you, friend, for being here. If you want to watch more of my videos, I'll pop them here. You can go enjoy between now and my next upload. Hope you're having a great day and can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.